So in this lesson, we're going to talk about the user interface, some of the Salesforce fundamentals, and a little bit about list views and how those are helpful as well. And the idea is, what are the features on the screen that will help you get the job done or help the user get the job done? If they're a sales rep, what do we need to do as administrators to optimize their experience? How can we keep it simple? How can we reduce the amount of clicks? How can we reduce the amount of code that you have to put onto the screen? What can we do to overall speed up their processes? And we're going to talk a little bit about that, then go into a little bit about the user interfaces and a couple of features and some key features that I think will be important on the administrator exam. And hopefully it'll help you out. It'll get you started, get your feet wet, and get you on the road to learning a lot more about Salesforce. Let's get started. So let's dive into it a little bit here. I mean, you can see everything on the screen. Not too much going on compared to some systems that I've seen. And this is just a basic default. So we can take a look. You're going to have your search bar where you can look up different information, customers, contacts, accounts. You could have a favorites list where you can save favorites. You could have some global actions. We're going to have a whole nother video about these. These will help you speed up creating new items, aka new records, or logging a call, sending an email. This right here goes through guidance, so you can get more guidance and info. You can get into the help and training, obviously. Setup, this right here, these are going to be crucial. You're going to learn to use these every day, especially throughout these video tutorials. Notifications are actually really useful, especially when you're trying to communicate across different teams. You can automate a lot of different messaging that you can send through these notifications and see how people are collaborating. You can go and adjust your profile. You can adjust your settings and you can adjust your displays. You could even switch back to Salesforce Classic. Most likely you're not operating in Classic, but if you were, we'll talk a little bit about that in a different video. And there's just so much more you can do here. So the next level, though, there's another level here. We're going to go to this. Some people call it the waffle icon, where you can see apps. And we're going to talk about apps in a minute. We'll go into a little bit more detail. Each app has a different function and a purpose. Right now we're in the sales app. If I were to click service, you'll see it load into the service app, which has different tabs up at the top. So that's pretty interesting. So that's just a quick example. Not going to go into too much detail until the next portion. All right. So the home page, all the apps have a home page. They all have a dashboard of some sort with different components on the dashboard and various tabs across the top with different functions, features, and crucial business and sales needs that your team has. This is very customizable. That's the whole thing about Salesforce, is how customizable it is. You can see so much more detail here where you ran out of room on the navigation bar. And so more items will line up all the way down this list. You could even click this to personalize your navigation bar and move items around. Let's say I want to see accounts. So I drag accounts up into the upper level of the navigation bar so I can get to it faster. I'm going to click save. And now accounts is up towards the front of my list, so I don't have to go search for it when it's kind of hidden in the more section, for example. Or I could even simplify this and just remove some items, like I don't ever use a calendar, for example. So I could get rid of that. So that's the basic idea of your initial interface, but it's so much more customizable from here. Now, we're going to move on and start talking about user interface settings in the setup section. So let's go there now. Go to setup here. I'm going to type in user interface. You're going to see a lot of different options pop up here. You're going to see a list of many different items you can go into and research. We're just going to focus on a couple of them. But actually, this one's really important here. User interface. It's actually verbatim. And it's almost repetitive here that you would have this category, and then you'd have a subcategory where you can actually interact with what settings your user interface looks like. And so as you're looking through the user interface, I'm not going to go into detail on every single item on this page. I mean, you can see there's a lot on here. There's a lot of items. You could go and test these out on your own. The reason I don't want to cover them in full is because I don't believe you're going to find this as much on the administrator exam. However, there are a couple of items that I think would be really interesting and important to talk about, including enable inline editing and enable enhanced lists. Now, inline editing, according to the Salesforce documentation, lets users quickly edit the fields right on the record's detailed page, and or in a list view or a report if you have the right permissions and settings for the user. This option is enabled by default and applies to all users in your org, so it should already be enabled. Now, enhanced lists can also impact how list views show up. So it'll give you the ability to quickly view, customize, and edit list data to speed up daily productivity. Because remember, this is the whole topic that I've been trying to say with this lesson. The idea is you are going in here and adjusting the interface in minor ways that have major impacts. So this is all important because you could enhance your list view capabilities and make it possible where the user doesn't have to navigate away from the page. It's also enabled by default. So if I wanted to enable it, you could just check the box and then hit save. The key part is you're understanding what is inline editing and what does it mean and what does it look like on the screen. Let's do a quick example here together. So I'm back on my accounts tab here. I'm looking at the accounts object. We'll talk more about objects in the future if you don't understand that yet. Now, I have this list where I can drop down my recently viewed. I can pull up all accounts. And I can go over here and, something's happening here. Inline edit is disabled. I need to filter by one record type. Now, another video, of course, we'll talk about record types. But let's see what we can do to make this functionality work. So I'm going to go into a filter here. What I'm looking at on the screen is a list view. And there's a whole nother lesson on that too. Don't worry, I got you. So I'm going to add the filter. This will help us to kind of clean up this page a little bit and just focus on buyers or suppliers basically. Because it's focused on one record type now and it's locked here, now I can, however, edit multiple items on this screen. There's only 2 of them right now, but I'm just using this as an example. Let's edit, for example, the state that they're in. For example, let's say a user made a mistake. I will click this box. Now I have all the items selected, and I can update all the items to North Carolina or Texas or Georgia or Tennessee, for example, and hit apply. Wow, look at that. It highlighted them both. All I have to do now is click save. And look, changes are saved. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So the idea is you can go in here and click this edit pencil and do whatever you want without having to click in to the account itself, go to the whole page and run through the whole edit process. That's the key. That's the important part of understanding these different types of being able to edit inline and having more advanced list views. And so in summary, we talked about a lot of the basic interface, some of the initial buttons and icons you'll see on the screen, and a few of the basic functions that you'll need to know just to get started with Salesforce and learning your administrator certification knowledge. Then we also jumped into working in user interface through the setup feature and talking about inline editing and enhanced lists on list views, which looked a little bit like this. And then being able to mass edit or do a multiple edit at one time for different items like the state, for example. Let's do another one real quick. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see if we can do all three. Excellent. So, thought that was interesting. Hopefully, you understand it and get ready. Stay motivated. I'm trying to encourage you like usual, and let's keep going.